Right, greetings all, hope this finds you well as always, and it's now time for the latest update from the machine shop, where we're up to and what we're on with. Right, the first job this week I can't actually show you, because it's been done, and because it's gone. The job was making some fittings for a set of oiler pad frames for Armstrong Oilers. Brian got them done this morning, Phil Naylor was in at lunchtime, and they promptly disappeared back over to Armstrong, so just shows how we're getting jobs quickly out the door. Another job Brian's on with is this monstrosity that's currently set up in the Fritz milling machine. What he's making are these, which are some V-blocks for the weighing gear out of the N16. They have to be made out of high tensile steel, so they'll actually stand the pressure of that they're exposed to in use. I mean, two of these V-blocks support a lever that in turn supports one wheel on a wheel set. So each of those V-blocks has potentially a force of, well, if we say 20 tonnes an axle, so that's 10 tonnes a side, so that's 5 tonnes of V-block. So if we say roughly 5 tonnes, then we want to make them up a bit of decent stuff, and for that, Brian's using a bit of EN16T. He's having to start with round because, surprise, surprise, you cannot get square EN16T from the stockholders, full stop. So instead we started the lump around, and he's just spent a bit of time today getting it set up on the machine. He's got it on the two vices so that he can do it in one long lump. He'll mill that down to a square section and then slice it up and then tidy them up to produce the individual cuboids. And then finally, using an angle vice, calm though, he will mill these into those to make those little cuboids into V-blocks. So that's another little job that's come on. A job that's come in the last couple of days. Got a lot come in the last couple of days. Not that I'm complaining, it's good to be busy. But a job that has come in is these wonderful things, which are the clack valve bodies off A2135. The problem is, as so often happens, is that the seat in the body has been cut. You can see the cuts at about 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and about 3, strangely. So why they're at about 90 degrees to each other, I do not know. That, incidentally, is one of the clack valves out of there. It's that seat there, which in turn locates onto that seat there in the body. Anyway, the upshot is those bodies need their seats recutting. Now, this is where it gets challenging. As you can see, that body is quite a convoluted shape. And we'd look at doing it ideally one of two ways. First of all, be in the milling machine. Second of all, will be in the lathe. It's a bit of a catch-22 there. We haven't really got a cutter that will work in the milling machine to do it, although they'll be dead easy to secure onto the milling machine table. We've got a cutter in the lathe, otherwise known as a boring bar, which will do the job beautifully, but securing that onto a four-jaw chuck or a faceplate with the devil's own job. So the idea I've come up with to do them is we're not going to do them with either a mill or a lathe. We're actually going to do them on the horizontal borer. My idea is that we'll get 2 angle plates and we will bolt 1 angle plate to each of the flanges. That will then ensure that the body will then sit, it will basically tipped over onto its side. So it will be clamped to the, if my hand is the machine table, it'll be clamped to the machine table by 2 angle plates, and then all I've got to do is dial it in by twisting it backwards and forwards on the machine table until this is running square, running true, at which point I can go in there with a boring bar in the facing head and just simply cut outwards or inwards if I so fancy, probably outwards, I'll have more tool clearance, and so that'll clean the seats up. So that's the first job that's come in. The second job that's come in is that box of bits there, which is part of the steam heat valve off 76079. And the problem is that the entire lot depends on a shuttle valve, which is there. One shuttle valve, which in turn takes rings. 1 ring, which slot into the grooves in the head there, just like piston rings on a car engine. Unfortunately, these rings are, well, as you can tell, that ring's not round for a start. The base of the life expired, so we need to make some new of them. Much to my surprise, Because it's running in a bronze casting rather than steel, it's a bronze ring. So we have a chunk of LG4, from which I think somebody's already tried to make something, which is going to yield us 2 of those rings. It's going to be a wee bit wasteful, but to be honest, it can't be helped. It's, as a Russian mate of mine would say, Nichevo, it's what has to happen. So we'll turn those. The way we're going to do it is I'll measure the bore and then make the ring so many thou per inch over size. I'm not quite sure of the allowance. If there's any clever beggar on here who says, oh yeah, for bronze rings it should be this, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm going for roughly 40 thou per inch diameter, because that's what we use with cast iron. But if somebody out there thinks bronze should be more or less, give us a shout. I'm always up for a bit more information. And then what we'll basically do is turn a ring and then gap it. You can see how that ring's got a gap cut in it. That's to allow the ring to close up in the bore as it's fitted. So that's another little job. Another job we've got in is that, which is the handle off a vacuum brake valve on a BR standard. We have that, which is 1/2 of said vacuum brake valve. That's the disc which actually connects to that handle, so you can get the proportional destruction or creation of the vacuum. Now that was very badly scored and has been skimmed in the lathe this afternoon to remove the worst of that scoring. And then the other half of the valve is up here in the Mostana, where it's going to be skimmed tomorrow morning. But this will also show you some of the scoring I'm talking about. Basically, that disc we've just seen goes down onto here, the handle then mounts on top of it all, and you can see the scoring here. This has occurred where the valve has drawn in grit and muck out of the cab, and it's actually drawn it into the valve when the valve brake has been applied, vacuum destroyed. It draws a little muck in, and then it basically gets stuck in the valve. And then the next time the valves work, because this is a rotating disc valve, remember, it then scores all the surfaces, which is not good. So the next job is, that just needs dialing in, and then a quick skim just to true it up. Now, as I walked up the shop, you may have noticed that a mound of bits that was about there yesterday, last week, isn't there anymore, and has instead been replaced by that blue rack. The blue rack has just purely been moved because it was in the way where it was previously. It was a classic example of put it down here somewhere, it's heavy. And it was put down, filled, and then never moved. So it's on wheels, so I just shot it out of the way because it was getting quite congested in that bay there. Now then, previously here last week, we had all the bits off 8136, which were awaiting non-destructive testing. Well, the one and only Thomas Goulding has been going at it like a little demon, he has. He's been going through NDT spray like it's going out of fashion. And last week, he got all the stuff, on Tuesday, actually, this week, he got the last of the stuff for 136 finished. What I've then done is I've then gone through and measured it up for wear. As you can see, we've got a bush here. We've also got a pin there. The pin is condemned because if we look at it, you will see, I'm just trying to find the best spot. There is quite an impressive step worn in it. You can just see the step there. You can also see it here. So that pin has worn beyond accepted tolerance, so that's due to be replaced. The other pin is there for a very simple reason, because this bush also needs renewal, and I want the pin so I can match the bush to it. But that bush has also gone out of tolerance. The link's here because that's what both pins go into, and the other 2 pins are there purely because I haven't got around to measuring them up yet, because they actually fit into rods that we haven't got in the shop yet. But anyway, everything else was successfully NDT'd by Tom. Thomas, it's been absolutely fine, not a problem at all. So a few quick bits of titivation, tidying up and whatnot, and that's all gone back out into the running shed, all ready to be refitted. But we can't have young Mr. Goulding standing around doing nothing. I mean, we've got to keep him busy. So we're promptly bringing him in the next round of stuff, which is bits off 76079. So we've got various bits that come in so far today. We've got the combination levers and other bits and pieces. There's all the motion pins in that box there. And then there's various stuff over there. All of that's been tested on a random rod brass that I must remember what the devil that's out of and get it machined and out of here, but never mind. Anyway, a valve crosshead, a couple of the bits and pieces, and the valve die blocks. They've all been non-destructive tested with no problems at all. That lot has been non-destructive tested today. There'll be another lot coming in tomorrow so that Thomas can get on with that next week while I'm not here. And then I need to go through that and that and that and find out what's worn. You can spot the pattern here, folks. So anyway, this is welcome to Gromit Workshops in the winter. So anyway, that's another job that's well on with. We've also got one of the rods that's come in, that's also due non-destructive testing, so we can be on with that next week. And then we've also got finer rare rod brasses, again at 76, which are just awaiting me getting the final dimensions to machine them to finish size. One of them was actually sat in the Mustang until earlier today, until I realised that it would actually be quicker to throw that brass out and then dial it back in when I get the dimensions to finish machine it, than it would be to actually get the 4-jaw chuck onto the Harrison. So anyway, that's why it was rather unceremoniously turfed out and that brake valve body put in there. So hope it makes sense. Makes sense to me anyway, roughly. Anyway, so folks, that's where we're up to and that's where we're at. I hope you found it educational, informative as always. We're keeping busy, as you can tell. So take care and I'll see you around.